And good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. You're taking part in our question and answer consultation event for the plans for Valley Ridge, a new eco-friendly, family-focused staycation resort. This is the second of 6 question and answer events where we'll present the scheme and then give you the opportunity to ask questions to the team. I'll now introduce the team members that are taking part with us this evening. Firstly, from our architects, we're joined by Chris.
Good evening. My name is Chris Hall. I'm a partner at Holden Mathias Architects.
Thanks for that. From our planning consultants, we're joined by Peter.
Good evening. My name is Peter Twemlow. I'm from DP9 Planning Consultants.
Okay. From our transport team, please welcome Phil.
Hi all. My name is Phil Bell. I'm a director at Motion and I deal with traffic and transport.
Economics consultant is Ellie.
Hi, my name's Ellie Evans. I'm a partner at Volterra and we are economic impact specialists.
Landscape architects, Philip.
Hello, my name is Philip Smith. I'm from Bradley Murphy Design, Landscape Architects.
And finally, from the developer, we have Simon.
Hello, I'm Simon Padgett from Valley Ridge Holdings Limited. We own the site and are the applicant in this planning application.
Fantastic. We welcome all your questions, and we've had a number of questions that are concerned with transport. I'm going to turn to Phil first. I asked at the start, if possible, to keep questions short and direct, and this question certainly has done. Phil, can you tell us what will the road infrastructure improvements be?
Okay, so the access to the site will be via a new roundabout at the junction of Lyme Way, which some will know as the Orbit Housing Estate, so new roundabout on Bramford Road. Beyond that, I should say our transport and traffic assessment is not yet complete. We're some way off a planning application, but we do have a benchmark in the approved Snoasis scheme, and as part of that scheme there were some improvements to the cycle network between the site and Claydon, and we will be replicating those proposals undoubtedly. Beyond that, we don't envisage significant off-site works to the highway network. That's probably it for that question.
Okay, well, there's a follow-up with a little more detail just been asked about the access road on the way to the site. There's a suggestion that it sometimes gets quite busy with traffic and sometimes lorries possibly go into other areas, including the new build estate and the landfill site. And we've been asked for reassurance in any details, possibly not now, but later, to say what is in place to make sure that we can cope with any increased volume in traffic. I think at the moment, at the very least, people watching this will need an assurance from you that your team understand the importance of making sure that we are not going to cause any problems of that kind.
Yeah, so I think that question relates to the access road itself, which we will be utilising to gain access to the site. That will be redesigned to an extent, not least to tie into the new roundabout, which is in a slightly different location to the existing point of access onto Bramford Road. We are aware of queuing associated with vehicles getting through the weighbridge at the Viridor site, and the new access road will be designed in such a way that guests and visitors can bypass that traffic to gain access to the site.
Okay, thanks for that. Staying with you, there are other ways of getting to the site, of course, than by road. I've been asked a couple of questions. Is there likely to be a shuttle bus to Ipswich? And will the Great Blakenham train station still be built? 2 separate questions there.
Okay, I'll deal with the last one first, I think. So the Snoasis scheme was predicated on a new railway station at Great Blakenham. That was demonstrated to be neither viable nor supported by the rail operator, and that fell away as part of the Reserve Matters application for Snoasis. So instead of that, well, we would have been doing it anyway, frankly, but we are proposing shuttle buses. Those shuttle buses will link to Stowmarket Station. Stowmarket's been chosen because it has a better frequency of trains to Needham Market. So shuttle buses to Stowmarket Station and also shuttle buses to Ipswich, and separate shuttle bus facilities will be available for visitors / guests and for staff.
And just to go back to that Great Blakenham station, just to put it in real lay terms, the train operators, the train company said they wouldn't stop there even if there was a station. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, then I appreciate that. A couple of questions about jobs and the economies, which I turn to Ellie to talk about. First, another simple question, really. How will we ensure that local people will get jobs?
Thanks, Matt. Well, there'll be a very wide range of jobs because of the nature of the scheme. So we estimate at the moment that there'll be about 1,800 jobs and a big sort of, whilst a number of those will be full-time, there'll also be a number of part-time and seasonal jobs. So they will appeal to a wide range of people. There will be commitments. We haven't developed them yet in terms of local working to try and ensure that we attract a local workforce.
Okay, and do you feel that the local employment market is sufficient to find everybody that's needed to work locally, be based locally?
Yeah, the travel to work area that we are looking at is the whole of Suffolk because that's the area over which it would be reasonable to assume people might travel to work. Obviously, there will be differing numbers of people from different distances. In terms of whether there will be available workforce, historically it hasn't been an area that's suffered particularly badly with unemployment. So it has had rates of about 2% versus almost double that nationally. Unfortunately, as we've experienced across the whole of the country over the last year, there have been very large rises in unemployment. So in 2019, across Suffolk, there were around 8,000 to 10,000 people claiming some form of job seeker related benefit looking for work. That has more than doubled. So there's over 22,000 at the moment. So yes, we do think we will be able to recruit predominantly from the local area. And because of the nature of the jobs, it's not necessarily just those who are formally unemployed as well, because in order to claim benefits, you have to be actively looking for a job. And there will be some people who are economically inactive, but who may well be quite attracted to the roles here because of the flexibility. So you might see students wanting summer jobs. You might see people who otherwise can't enter the job market, but want a very flexible opportunity. So because of the wide range of types of jobs, we think actually there'll be a big appeal to quite a wide range of people.
Okay, thank you for that. I've been asked a couple of questions about things on the site, and they're quite specific questions. One is, can we make the ski slope longer than 180 metres? It's 200 metres has been suggested here to make sure it's the longest in the UK. I think, Chris, when you were talking before, you said 180 metres plus. Perhaps you could talk about that for a little bit. And then a very specific question about the snow domes, and will they have button lifts or a chair lift fitted? There we are.
Excellent. Thank you for the questions. Yes, it would be great to make the ski slope longer. As I said at the beginning, we are at concept stage, so we had to start at something that worked from a business point of view. But we will certainly be reviewing the length of the slope. If the idea of being the longest in the UK is very appealing, so we will have a look at that as we develop the scheme.
Okay, carry on. Sorry.
The second question was on button lifts or chair lifts.
Yes, that's right.
Again, it's early days, but we've been in discussions with chairlift suppliers to provide a chairlift solution for the scheme, along with drag lifts as well. I think the chairlift potentially might also be used as an attraction for people who want to see the top of the slope, but not necessarily brave enough to get down it on some skis. Thank you.
Okay then, and a couple more questions about the use of the site, which I think I may stay with you, Chris, but I'm happy for anybody to come in on this. Can you talk about the potential proportion between day visitors and people on staycations of a few days or longer? Chris, if that's not for you, then I'm going to throw that open to the team for somebody to come in. What proportions do we think we have?
It's something in the region of about 55% to 45% of stay visitors versus day visitors. So there will be slightly more staying visitors than we will have day visitors.
Okay then, we were asked in our session we had earlier today on a few occasions about access for people who live in the area to come on a day-by-day basis to facilities, and I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Chris, and that we certainly welcome
We certainly would.
all,
Yes.
all local residents, and we also want to make plans so people who live locally can be the first to come in and experience the facilities before anything else comes in. So that would be really good. Philip, Chris mentioned in his presentation Newts. I've been asked if we're able to start building without the Newts being moved. What's your response to that?
Well, I suppose there's a few strands to the answer of that. The first one is that we're doing everything we can to ensure that we don't have to move any. So we're looking at retaining a large number of the water bodies and the Newt areas. The second strand, if you like, is that we're then making sure that any disturbance of Newts is mitigated before any building work starts. So we have ecologists on the site at the moment. We know roughly and more accurately where the Newts are, and we are working our plans around them, and it will be mitigated before any construction.
Can you say a few words about badgers and bird boxes for us? A question that came in earlier, just after our last session finished.
Yeah, sure. So similarly to the Newts, there are badgers on site that have been identified, and again, we will be trying to avoid them as much as possible and leave them be where they are on the site. It's worth mentioning that obviously not all of the site is to be developed with buildings. There's large areas of landscape that we want to leave and retain and enhance some areas, but obviously where there are badgers, we would leave those areas alone. Where there may be some impacts on badgers, again, they will be relocated prior to any construction work starting that would impinge on those areas.
Okay, thanks.
And what was the other one? Sorry, bird boxes. Yeah,
bird boxes.
So, bird boxes and bat boxes. There are identified potential bat roosting areas outdoors, and we're very much putting things like that at the forefront of our design, making sure that it's designed for. And yes, we will be including bird boxes and bat boxes in the proposals.
Okay, I'm coming back to Phil for a couple of questions that I think are more to do with construction rather than the finished site, but a question about making sure that we can keep construction noise to a minimum on local roads. Can you say anything about the construction process and how we'll make sure that we do that?
I can, thank you, Matt. We don't yet have full details of how these buildings will be constructed, but what I can say is that construction will be controlled through the planning process. There will be a requirement for a construction management plan, and that will deal with a number of things, including routing of vehicles, timing, sizes of vehicles, and so on and so forth. I should say that access to the primary route network is via A and B class roads. Bramford Road is of course a B class road, so should be no issue with impact of construction traffic on minor roads.
Okay then. And I'm going to come back to Chris just to follow that up really. A questioner points out that some of the lodges are quite close to a couple of properties on Back Lane, and has consideration been given to make sure that no disturbance is caused to those properties?
There certainly will be. As the landscape part of the presentation pointed out, we will be enhancing the boundaries around the site with additional planting, so we can visibly screen these. They are the cliff type lodges, which are only single story from the top of the from Back Lane, so you'll only be seeing, if you did see anything, it'll just be a single story building as opposed to a taller building. The farmhouse opposite is quite a good structure. And in terms of noise, then of course that will be controlled by the on-site management plan to ensure people staying there are respectful.
Absolutely. It links onto a question about fences and hoardings around the entire site. We've been asked if the entire site will be fenced off. You mentioned that a little there, Chris. Just give us more details.
Yes, there will be some fencing around the site necessary to protect certain areas of the site, but there are also public rights of way that we are looking to introduce or reintroduce across the site that were previously removed by the quarry activities. So we will still have access across the site, and to the west of the site we are still looking at providing the community woodland that was also in the Snoasis scheme, which will be access for all. There's also a bridleway to the north of the site, which of course is being retained as is.
Matt, shall I just jump in there and say a little bit more about public rights of way?
Please do.
There are numerous public rights of way around the site, some of which were sadly severed when the quarrying operation commenced. We have been in detailed discussion with Suffolk County Council in relation to reinstating those. And by reinstating, I mean providing a new public right of way networks around the periphery of the site. And in addition to that, we will be improving the retained sections of existing public rights of way.
Okay, thanks. Phil, I'm going to stay with you. Two separate questions. One asks about traffic on the A14 and A12 and how they're going to cope. And another one just concentrates on the A12. Will your traffic work extend as far as those major roads?
Absolutely. So traffic's always a sort of sensitive subject. The benchmark here is the approved Snoasis scheme. And we are currently in the process of undertaking a complex traffic study. We tend to, in my world, focus on the weekday morning and evening peak hours, although we will be looking at other periods throughout the day. The work that we've done to date suggests that traffic associated with the Valley Ridge scheme will be very similar to the approved Snoasis scheme. In fact, during the morning peak, slightly lower. It is a requirement that we look at impact on all junctions. When I say all junctions, we've agreed a study area with Highways England, who are responsible for the A12 and A14, and with Suffolk County Council, who are responsible for other roads. And at the moment, we consider a similar result to the previous work done, and that is no significant impact, particularly in relation to junction 52, which is the A14 junction closest to the site. That is a junction that has plenty of spare capacity. But finally, just to say that the nature of the use is such that it's not concentrated during peak times. A lot of the traffic will take place off peak during the middle of the day.
And as I think you mentioned there and before, a lot of this is going to come out of discussions with the various local authorities that are concerned. A question comes in about potentially replacing traffic lights with a roundabout on the a junction near the site. I imagine that you're looking at everything like that at the moment to come up with the best answer in discussions with the relevant councils. And I think there's a map on the screen if that's helpful for you to talk to.
Yeah, that's a map showing where we're proposing cycle improvements. But yes, we will be looking at impact on all of the junctions agreed with the relevant authorities as part of the pre-application discussions. At this stage, we don't envisage changing any junction types with the exception of the site access junction on Bramford Road that I mentioned previously.
Well, now's a good time to talk about cycling. Oh, we probably can go back to that picture in just a moment. Do we know yet anything about cycles? We were asked about tricycles as well earlier today, and encouraging people who work on the site and visit on the site to use cycles to get there and get about.
So in terms of people visiting the site, yes, we are, as I mentioned, proposing improvements to cycle routes between the site and Claydon in particular. And that's a series of physical works and signage and so on and so forth to encourage people who live locally to cycle to the site. Within the site itself, we'll be set up for all sorts of different types of bicycles, including tricycles, which I'm sure will be available to hire along with standard bicycles. Cycle parking is something that clearly we need to deal with. So for people visiting the site by bicycle, there'll be ample cycle parking for them. And also just to note that there'll be an ongoing requirement for a travel plan. And as part of that travel plan, there'll be a requirement to monitor various things, including the take-up of cycle parking. So in the event that more cycle parking is required, more cycle parking will be provided.
All right then, and briefly staying with you, can you assure us that the shuttle buses you mentioned earlier will be electric? And do you know, or is it early to say their frequency? One questioner suggests every 30 minutes. I don't know if you can talk to that, but electric vehicles, especially buses, what do you think?
I can't assure they'll be electric, but I can assure everyone that they will be low emission vehicles as defined by government. So a lot can change in the transport world in a couple of years, but the intention will be to use the most sustainable types of shuttle buses, and that includes not only their fuel, but also their size. For instance, it's not necessarily sustainable to run buses around that are bigger than they need to be. As far as frequency, that is up for discussion. I think we are talking about a half-hour frequency, but that will need to be looked at very carefully to ensure that those shuttle buses coincide with arrivals at the Staymarket station, for instance. So a little bit further work required on that.
Great. And our next question is for Simon from the developers representatives. And it's a question that's been raised by a couple of people that suggest they've heard some rumours that the proposers, that's us, are looking to purchase the football pitches in order for the land to become part of the site. Another suggests that one of the access roads might cut across the football pitches. Simon, can you say anything about that?
Yeah, I can certainly say there's no intention for us to take that land. The land actually sits with the council on a lease now, but I'll pass you to Phil because the road improvements for the roundabout utilise a small corner of that land. Do you want to fill that in?
Yeah, can do. So I mentioned it earlier, Limeway, the residential road on the east side of Brampton Road, doesn't line up currently with the site access. So that currently forms a stagger junction. To make that a roundabout configuration, we need to realign the eastern end of the access road 7 site, but not to a significant degree. So that would encroach slightly in the northeast corner of said field, but there's no indication that would affect the football pitches.
So the use of the pitches can continue, and it's a council decision on what happens. And
that's right.
That's good news for the users of those pitches. There's another question related to the football, which I'm going to come to. This could be a question for Peter. Peter, we've not heard from you yet. Good evening. We've been asked if the draft Section 106 heads of terms have been completed. You can start by explaining what they are for those that don't know. In particular, we've been asked if there's any possibility of Claydon FC getting 4G pitches from this. So a general question about something called a Section 106 agreement, and then a specific question. Over to you, Peter.
Okay. Generally, for those that don't know, Section 106 agreement is a legal agreement between the applicant, so in this case Valley Ridge, and also with any other landowners, and also with the council, so in this case Mid Suffolk District Council and Suffolk County Council. The Section 106 agreement will be signed after planning committee, so toward the end of this year, and the content of that is generally determined from kind of the time of submission through to planning committee. Whilst there are kind of ideas and heads of terms at an early stage, it's typically not this early because it has to be linked to the development and kind of mitigation that's required.
Okay, thanks for that. I think at this stage it's something to say that if anybody who's watching this feels that there is something that should be considered as part of those discussions that you've just mentioned, please let us know. We can pass that information on to the relevant people to work out what's going to happen. I've got a couple of questions that I think are going to be for Simon, if you're okay to come back to us, Simon. Are any of the lodges going to be for sale?
No.
That's a simple question. The next one might be simple as well. Will there be child-free areas?
That hasn't been considered. Through the development of the design, I suppose there is potential where there will be quieter areas where there will be child-free, but it's an operational issue and we're not at that stage of making that decision.
But certainly with a family-friendly resort, one would imagine that most of the areas would be absolutely welcoming for children. Possibly part of the spa and wellness centre might be something a bit different, but for the activities on offer.
Yeah, I think those are the... Sorry,
I was going to say there is a desire to have a bit of escape in the wellness centre, so that may possibly have some child-free locations.
Okay then. Staying with Simon, if I may, a couple of different people have asked if we've started considering who might operate the restaurants and the bars, possibly the hotel, and whilst there are not many shops on site, who might operate those shops. Is that something that's even been considered yet, Simon?
There has been consideration. And Peter, do you want to come in on that from the point of view from the planning aspect?
Yeah, I think that when a planning application is made, the planning application will include a range of uses, as Chris described in the opening presentation. A key component of the resort obviously will be there'll be a kind of a retail and food and beverage offer. That will very much be part of the resort, whilst the kind of precise detail of what that is and who operates that space is not determined. Then kind of anything at this stage is an option. But I think that's all that we can say. Again, it's an operational matter that will be discussed more in the future.
Okay, then again, a question has again just come in about if we plan on partnering with other companies for the facilities, and obviously the answer is yes, but we're still some way from getting that. Is that fair, Peter?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think kind of as is often the case with applications like this, with a variety of users and uses, that kind of a lot of detail comes even after a planning permission is granted, and kind of all of us on this team are at the very early stage of putting together a planning application for submission this year.
Okay, now that makes a lot of sense. Simon, another question for you, 2 or 3 like this. I'll ask one. Will we be doing local mitigation, i.e. assisting in community projects? Another asks if we'll support local charities. Simon, what's your view?
I think, look, we're going to be the neighbour to the community and part of the community, and hopefully the people that are working there will be part of the community, and any business wants to build a relationship with those people, and that would be an involvement potentially in charities and sponsoring of individuals, both from a work aspect and from a sporting aspect.
Okay, that's helpful. Chris, I'm coming back to you. A couple of people have asked about noise from both indoor events and outdoor events, including special outdoor events. Is there anything you can say on how the site's been designed to minimise any excess noise, and anything else you can say about potential outdoor events, including anything that might be held close to some of our neighbouring properties? Chris?
Well, I mean, the scheme is in a bowl as it stands, which will offer some level of buffering from noise, but the scheme generally will have noise control measures in place to respect and be a good neighbour to those around. We're not expecting a Glastonbury event at this place at all. It's more provision for potential one-off events that might want to be hosted. So yeah, there will be measures in place.
And I think, again, I want to say it's a focus on a family-friendly resort, isn't it, really, with everything that implies of events that aren't going to make lots of noise. I don't think that many of the people that we hope will come and visit would welcome that either. So I think that we can continue to be a good neighbour in that way. I'm going back to Philip now. The first part of this question might be difficult for you to answer, so you might want to start with the second. Can we guarantee that the development will be carbon neutral and that there will be a net gain in biodiversity? How do you feel about that, Philip?
I might leave the carbon neutral one to others, maybe Chris, but in terms of biodiversity, we are definitely aiming to achieve biodiversity net gain. And on initial kind of findings and surveys, I think we are in a good place to achieve that.
Okay, and Chris, did you want to top up that with any more talk on what we can do to move towards carbon neutral?
Well, the scheme will be a carbon neutral development. That is a pledge that the client has made, and so we will be achieving that. We've just started on our BREEAM assessments, which look at the level of sustainability in the scheme, and we will be using renewables to reduce the carbon footprint. We'll be looking to design the scheme with less embodied energy in terms of carbon, and we'll be using what measures we can to get down to carbon neutral as a requirement.
Okay. One of those is reflected in a question that just came in a couple of minutes ago, so it's popping back to Phil again, I think, just to talk about the possibility of the vehicles on site, including maintenance vehicles, being electric to reduce that level of carbon as well as disturbance to guests. Phil?
I think absolutely, in terms of estate vehicles, so to speak. I think it's not something we've considered in detail, but I think it's a very reasonable assumption they would be electric. It's also noteworthy that we, from the outset, will be providing at least 25% of the car parking spaces with EV charging points. That's a very significant proportion, even in the current climate. So we're being very forward-thinking in that regard. So yeah.
Thanks, Phil. I'm staying with you. I know people are joining us all the time, so some of the questions may be things we've dealt with, but I think it's important to deal with it again. Can we talk about back lane a little and any potential use of back lane during and after construction? Phil, I think that falls within your transport remit.
I'm afraid to say I don't know exactly where back lane is, but if, and I have looked it up, so we've been on this call, but if that's the narrow roads surrounding the site, then they would not be appropriate for construction traffic and will not be used for construction traffic. We have a direct access off the B1113, and that's where our construction traffic will be coming from.
So what you can tell us again that the construction traffic all comes in through the main site entrance and only that, and everything will be closely monitored as it comes and goes. Can you talk a little bit about considerate contractors? We've been asked about dust during construction. So more than dust, just remind everybody how we can reduce the construction impact. Phil.
Well, the planning process will require a construction management plan, and that will deal with a whole host of measures. From my perspective, it will deal with construction traffic, but it will also deal with noise and dust and so on and so forth. And that will be closely monitored by the council to ensure that there's no avoidable construction impact to local residents.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just come in on that?
Yes, please.
More detail. So the planning application is accompanied by a draft or outline construction environmental management plan, which kind of controls not just the kind of the traffic and the construction logistics, but as Phil says, kind of construction, phasing, construction hours, and all of the required mitigation there. That is then captured, coming back to the earlier question, in the Section 106 agreement, which is a legal requirement then on the applicant to comply with the construction management plan.
Okay, so it's something that we're taking seriously through the process, isn't it? And that construction management plan, I take it, will be viewable along with all the other documents that get submitted as part of the application, Peter?
Yeah, that's right. It's a public document from the submission.
And we will make all those documents available via the website you're looking at the moment after submission. So it will be easy to view those things. I'm going to turn back to Chris. What measures are we putting in place to make sure there'll be no flooding? Our question is, if there is local flooding, are we making care to direct excess water away from the site? I think that's a question for Chris.
Yes, it's an engineering question. Our engineers are in discussion with the Water Authority. They've assured me there will be no increase in surface water runoff for the proposed development and no increased flood risk to the area as a result of our development.
Okay then, thank you for that. Staying with you, I've just been asked about another couple of potential uses on site. Go-karts and racetrack attractions. Has that come up in your design discussions, Chris?
Not to date, but I mean, we are early stages, so we are looking for activities on and around the site. So it's something we can consider and see whether there's a suitable location for it.
I think this morning's session, we were here earlier today, and we had some suggestions of other potential activities. I think donkey rides was one, a Punch and Judy display was another one. We welcome all those suggestions, whilst we've gone a long way to making sure that the plans are looking good. This is not a final plan, so I think if anybody who's watching this has got a particular use that they'd love to see on site, please use the share your views button and let us know what they are, and we can promise that everything will be considered. I think that we want to provide what people want to come and see, so that's an important thing. I'm going to come back to Simon because this is a question that keeps coming up. It's been asked a few times. Are residents likely to receive any discounts or special access to any of the facilities, any day rate concessions? Simon.
Yes, I think we'll be providing local residents with day passes at a discount. You know, we want the locals to use the facilities. They're hopefully going to be state of the art and UK unique.
That's good to know. So it's a case of yes, and stay tuned. Keep watching for that. I'm coming back to Chris. We're following up a lot of questions that have been asked, and I appreciate that. But Chris, I've been asked for you to confirm that you've taken into account that as the site is the shape of a bowl, that is a natural amplifier. And is that something that you've considered when putting the plans together?
I mean, we will be looking at noise with the engineering team and ensuring that we aren't creating a noise issue on the site.
Yeah, I think we keep going back to that we want to be a family site, and so it's unlikely that we're going to be having noisy events anywhere, and so there is not going to be that issue. Okay, somebody's asked if there's going to be an ice rink. Chris, it's my understanding again that not at the moment, but again, you never know. Would that be fair?
There was an ice rink in the Snoasis scheme. It was reviewed and found to be a bit too niche to be a dedicated facility. But what we felt is that actually you do see quite a lot of these seasonal ice rinks in town centres and various facilities. So we've got the Ridge, which is a large open space. Certainly, you know, around the winter time when it's colder and darker, an outdoor ice rink would be a great facility to add to the facilities we've already got. But at the moment, there's no plan for an indoor ice rink.
Okay. All the questions that are coming in and the comments are being recorded and will be available for view again. They'll also be recorded in one of the many documents that will get submitted as part of this planning application. So yes, these suggestions are all going to be listened to and taken seriously. Staying with you, I've been asked by a couple of different viewers for the size of the swimming pool. Is there possible to have a 50-metre pool because there isn't one in Suffolk? And will there be potential to use the lakes for open air, open water swimming? I think we have a couple of open water swimmers on the team, but I'll leave it with you, Chris, to talk about that.
I'm not an open water swimmer, so I can't. Yeah, some of my colleagues are. I'll start with the first one. The water park is a leisure park, a leisure pool. So there will be facilities in there such as a wave pool. We're looking at a surf pool, which provides you can surf on them. There's not actually a length pool being provided in the water park. There is a small pool being provided in the spa, but not to the sort of level that you would be doing anything more than short lengths. So the answer to that, unfortunately, is no, that we won't be able to accommodate a 50-metre pool. In terms of cold water swimming, we are looking at using the spa lake as part of the wellness facility to provide wild swimming opportunity in that lake. It should be a nice peaceful location, and certainly outdoor swimming is very much a thing these days, and we'll be encouraging it.
Okay, thank you. Can you say anything about renewable energy? I'll start with you, Chris, but feel free to pass this on. In particular, will there be any solar panels or will there be any wind turbines on site? Can you talk about that?
We have a large amount of lodges on the site with pitch roofs. We'll be certainly looking at things like solar thermal, which is heating hot water through panels on the roof, and also photovoltaics to produce electricity. We'll be looking at likely to be looking at air source heat pumps for the lodges themselves to generate electricity from the air. The main buildings are likely to be, or at the moment, the current thinking is we will be using ground store facility to temper the water temperatures in the development and pass that around the buildings. So we're putting a huge amount of effort into getting renewables. don't believe we're looking at wind turbines, but I mean, nothing is off the table. We are looking at all sorts of measures to get to our carbon neutral achievement.
Yeah, as I was about to say, this is all part of aiming to be carbon neutral, isn't it? Getting renewable energy from as many sources as possible. I'm going back to Philip now. Our questioner tells us that there's some internationally endangered migrant birds nearby, and can we assure everybody that they won't be disturbed by this project? Philip.
Yes, so as I've mentioned, there are ecology surveys going on at the moment which take into account elements like that, and we can assure people that any impacts on migrant birds or areas outside of the site won't be impacted on with our proposals.
Okay, thanks for that. There's a couple of questions have come in I'm going to deal with quickly. One or two have asked about some other things near our site and some local homes and the Viridor site. I don't think it's fair to talk about activities on other site, if that's okay with everyone. I don't think it would be a fair thing to do. We've been asked by a couple of people about potential prices, and I hope Simon won't mind if I say that it's probably a little too early to know about prices, obviously, but that's something that'll need to be considered nearer the time. And as we've heard, it's very likely to include local discounts as well. Coming back to you, Chris, a new question about light pollution. Is that something you've considered?
It certainly is something we will be getting into detail. We have the on-site ecology matters to be considering, the bats and the other wildlife. So all measures we will be putting in place in terms of artificial lights will be done with the aim of protecting the established and the retained natural habitats. Again, the site is in a low setting, so actually light pollution beyond the site will be minimal. In fact, it's quite unlikely that it will be that visible for the surrounding villages. But yeah, we'll be working closely with the ecological consultant to ensure that light has been considered properly for the project.
Okay, a question has just come in saying they want to ski already. We can't help them there, but a couple of people have asked about the timetable for this application. So Peter, can you take us gently through the various stages between today and Valley Ridge opening?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I was just on mute. So we're looking to submit a planning application in the summer. At the moment, that's looking like towards the end of July. From submission, there is a determination period which leads to a planning committee and a decision being made by councillors. We're looking at kind of autumn by the end of the year for that. So there'll be a decision notice, and then there's a kind of a stage of working through kind of planning conditions, as Philip's referred to, kind of ecological mitigation as well. Those works before starting work on site, which gets to the opening date of 2024, I believe. Simon may want to kind of come into detail on that end of the programme.
But this year the focus is on firstly preparing the planning application, of which this process is part of, and then the local authority making what we all hope will be a positive decision on the application. And would it be fair to say that's the focus for 2021?
Yes, so submission of an application this summer and then decision at planning committee towards the end of the year.
And it's terrific. I mean, so many people in this process so far have said really nice things, and I'm sure everybody should put forward their views to the local authority however they feel, but I'm not ashamed to use this opportunity to say that if you like what you've heard, then please do let your local authority know. And whatever else you want to say to them as well is obviously important. Not many new questions. A couple of things have come in that we've partly talked about, but I think it's worth just going back on. Phil, I'll be coming back to you. A couple of further transport questions. You may say this is out of our control, but one questioner asks if we can help reducing the speed limit on the B113, which is 40 miles an hour down to 30 to control speed limits. Is that an example of things you'll talk about that aren't quite in our control?
Well, it's not certainly not within our control. I mean, I should say that has been reduced to 40 miles an hour in recent years. It's outside of our control insofar as those changes would require a traffic regulation order, which is a process that falls outside of planning. Certainly something we could consider. It's not something that the Highway Authority considers necessary at this stage, but if it is necessary as a consequence of this development, which I personally don't believe it is, but if it is, then yes, that's absolutely something we will look at.
Okay, then I've also been asked, and I guess maybe a too early to say answer, feel free to, who will operate the shuttle buses? I've been asked, will it be a local operator such as Ipswich Buses maybe?
The answer to that is we don't know yet, but it could be. It'll either be operated by the operator of the site or by an external company, and a local bus operator would be clearly an easy win in that regard.
Okay, then a question came in this afternoon and it's just been followed up, and I think it is an important question. It points out that COVID-19 might possibly be here in some form for a little while to come. Is this something that we've taken into consideration as we develop the proposals? I think there's various elements to this, and Ellie, if you could start talking on the ramifications for the local economics first.
Yeah, we've obviously considered it from an economic perspective, and for nearly all projects that we're involved with at the moment, there is an element of forecasting to think about unemployment in particular, and how long the impacts of COVID in terms of unemployment might persist. Most national forecasts have unemployment rates falling back down to pre-COVID levels by 2024, so by the year of opening. So we do anticipate that there might be more people locally and nationally looking for work during the construction. So hopefully they will therefore benefit from the jobs created during the construction. Once operational, I think it would be fair to say we're not relying on there being a much larger pool of available local labour, but obviously there might be, and if so, those people would benefit from it. In terms of other economic trends that are relevant to this, the impacts of COVID-19, I guess, have accelerated trends which we were already seeing. So the rise of the staycation was already a growing trend, an increasing demand for leisure activities, particularly exercise-based ones and outdoor activities. All of that has been just increased through COVID. So given the nature of the sorts of activities available on site that Chris has already talked about, we think it speaks very well to those sorts of trends that have been occurring nationally anyway, and therefore will benefit the users as well as the local people.
Chris, can you say anything on the concept of the entire site as far as COVID is concerned?
Yes, I mean, we're hoping 3 years' time when the scheme opens that COVID will be less of a thing than it is now, but we have lots of wide open spaces. We're deliberately designing large expanses, and we're encouraging a lot more outdoor activity and alfresco dining. So we would be well positioned in terms of what's happening on Monday next week. In terms of the internal parts of the scheme, we're still developing that with the engineers, but the mechanical ventilation measures and everything are being considered, and we will be designing the scheme as safe as we can.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to come back to Ellie because I've just been asked, our questioner asks when jobs will be released. I guess it means when jobs are likely to become available. Can you talk to that, especially in terms of the different kinds of jobs that will be in site, maybe including construction jobs?
Yeah, of course. We haven't done a detailed analysis of all of the construction jobs yet, but obviously those will come sooner than the operational ones. There will be a wide variety. Some will presumably be specialist in relation to the sorts of leisure we're talking about, but many of them will just be mainstream construction activities, all of which there are firms and skilled labour in the area. So there will be a wide variety of types of construction. jobs that will be needed on site. Once operational, we have included some detailed numbers. Again, they're relatively high level at this stage because the details, as Simon's mentioned, are not fully available yet. But as you'd imagine, there will be a wide range of jobs associated with the hotels, apartments and lodges. So there will be cleaning staff, there will be catering, there will be receptionists. There will also be a number of jobs associated with the leisure elements. So there will be lifeguards in the water park, there will be ski instructors, there will be entertainers and people involved in the other leisure elements. There will also be a number of jobs in the kind of catering side in terms of both preparing food, but also giving that to people and selling things with it, both in the retail and the food and beverage. There will also, as with any big employer, be a number of sort of office-based roles, HR, legal, accounting, all those sorts of roles. So there'll be a really, really wide range of opportunities.
And Ellie, is it fair to say that, I suppose like many employers, it's to Valley Ridge's benefit that as many as possible of the people are local people, just to make their journeys to and from work easier and their understanding of the area? So do you feel there's on both sides, there's strong interest in making sure that the jobs are local wherever possible?
Yeah, I mean, any leisure destination wants to be part of the local community. It wants to attract both local people to be day visitors, but also, visitors from further afield to return. And that's all about having a workforce that want to be there, that are positive and that, enjoy their work. And so working local people, getting them involved, getting them invested in their job will be in the interests of the employer. There will be, as Peter mentioned, the details of the Section 106 could well include a number of elements with regards to local working, working with local schools and education, apprenticeships, training programs, and things like that.
Okay, a couple of questions. I think we're coming to the end, but please, if you can try not put any questions in the next couple of minutes. I'm going to answer a couple. I've been asked if the development will accommodate assistant dogs and guests' pets. I mean, assistant dogs, certainly, I'm sure. Pets, I suppose it depends what the pet is, but within reasonable things, then yes. We've been asked about the outdoor pursuits. Now, we've covered that quite a lot, but Chris, just run through very quickly for what may be a new viewer, the various outdoor pursuits that are going to be on offer.
Well, it is still in development, but we can see opportunities for cycling, for running, walking, those kind of pursuits. In terms of activities in the water, we've got the idea of kayaking, canoeing, wakeboarding, paddleboarding. We are looking at potentially zip lining from the down into the quarry from the edge down, which could be quite amazing, particularly with this ski slope where it is. And we'll be looking at various other facilities, potentially climbing. Yeah, I mean, if people have particular ideas of what they would like to see, happy to look at it, because
that's very true, and there's certainly some further information elsewhere on the website as well. A specific question though for you, Chris, do you think to provide any further computer generated images or other information of how the proposals will appear from Claydon Village in particular, to understand the height perspective of the ski slope?
Yes, I mean, as part of the process, there are a number of authorised viewpoints that the landscape team will be providing visual impact assessments, which are 3D views representative of the scheme from certain points around the area. Additionally, there will be a map that shows all, or theoretically all areas that would be able to see the buildings from the locality. In terms of Valley Ridge compared to the previous scheme, the ski slope, the benefit of it being a shorter slope is it's also doesn't go quite as high. It's about 50 meters lower on the horizon than the previous scheme. So the previous scheme stood about 70 meters above the ridge level. our scheme stands about 20 metres above the ridge. So if you were looking at the previous project, which did get planning approval, you are getting much less visual impact than you were before.
And those views will eventually be made available as part of the planning application that everybody will be able to view on the project website and the local authorities website. So there's no secret information there as far as anyone concerned. I've been asked if we're on social media, i.e. Twitter. It can all to come. I think for the time being, I'd encourage everybody to keep an eye on the website. As further information comes, we will update the project website you're looking at now with further information. Please do come back to us with any questions or comments using the social views, the share your views, button on that. I think I'm going to try and answer the last question tonight, which is, will this project go ahead? And I hope everybody who's watching this feels that after what they've heard tonight, that they want it to go ahead. It's our determination that it goes ahead. A lot of work has gone into this Valley Ridge project and will continue to do so. We want to keep hearing your views to make it as good a project as it can possibly be. But a lot of time and, yes, a lot of money is being spent on making sure that this project goes ahead. And we really look forward to continuing to hear your views. We have 4 more sessions like this, 2 tomorrow. You can see all the information on the website. Then we're here tomorrow at 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock. Friday again at 1 o'clock, on Saturday at 10 a.m. We'd encourage anybody, please encourage your friends and neighbours to join us. You'll be able to watch these sessions back in full on this website next week with very easy access to particular questions and their answers. So please do come back to and join us. There's a telephone number that you can call if you need to. It's a different number from the number I gave out earlier, so I'm just reaching for my paper to make sure I get it right. It's 0800 955 1042. That's 0800 955 1042. It's a slightly different number to the helpline number, but it's a number that's staffed during office hours. So please do give us a call if there's anything we can help with. Going to finish by thanking the panel today, and I'm going to particularly thank everybody who's been watching and everybody who's been asking some brilliant questions. Thanks for taking the time to participate in this